Union gets set to take on Penn State tomorrow, 4:30 in round one of the NCAA regional tournament. And look, Rick Bennett knows how to win tournament games. 3 years ago, they won the NCAA tournament. So he'll have his team, I'm sure, ready to go and well prepared. Penn State in this for a first time. So I guess you give the edge to the Dutchman tomorrow. Ashley Miller joins us here on Big Board Sports. Good morning, Ash.
Hey, Raj. Hi, Chris.
Morning, Ash.
How's Cincinnati, Ash?
Cincinnati's great, actually. It's a nice city. It's a big city. Today's a little gloomy, but it's one of those cities where you walk down the street and you run into the Bengals Stadium and you run into Great American Ballpark, and then right next door is where Union will be playing. So it's got that big city feel. It's a pretty cool town.
What's your thoughts here? You have some press conferences coming up later today. I know you talked to some of the players last night. I watched your story last night on News Channel 13 live at 11. What's some early thoughts here on the matchup with Union and Penn State?
Yeah, I talked to a couple of the juniors last night, which obviously these guys have never been to the NCAA tournament. It's kind of crazy to think they won it 3 years ago but haven't been back since then. And so this group is pumped. 3 classes. This is the first time they've ever been to the NCAA tournament. But at the same time, they said to me last night, we're not just happy to be here. We're happy to be here, but we're not just happy to be here. We're here to win a game or 2 games and hopefully go on to the Frozen Four. So you get that feeling that they feel like they belong here, and it was sort of an aberration the past 2 seasons, the fact that they weren't in the tournament.
I guess when they won this 3 years ago, they had this kid named Shane Gottisbehere, right?
Okay.
He was pretty good.
Yeah, that'll help.
Yeah, and now here they are with Mike Vecchione. Now, he was a freshman, right? He would have been a freshman on that national championship team, and now Rick Bennett's just riding him, right? If they're going to win, tomorrow at 4:30 against Penn State, Vecchione is going to be heard from.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing. You talk about, we kind of view this team as one that has a lot of experience, where I guess we forget only one of the classes has been there, but it's an important class. You have a guy like Mike Vecchione, you have a guy like Alex Sakelaropoulos who didn't play in that game, but was there, was part of it, kind of got that experience. And I just think at the end of the day, that's going to be huge. You need guys like Vecchione and Spencer Fu and Jeff Taylor to play like they've played all season, and that should really be enough to beat a Penn State team that, listen, they're red hot coming into the playoffs. They ran their way through the Big Ten tournament, but it's a first for these guys, and they've never done it before. The excitement is there. The bright lights are there, and this is something that Union is kind of used to at this point, and Penn State is really young. And I talked to one of the guys who's going to call the game tomorrow, and he said this is a really young team. Their goalie is a freshman. Now, he was the tournament MVP, so he's obviously no slouch either, but there's not a lot of experience on this team, and you have to think that Union would certainly have the edge in that category with guys like Vecchione leading the way.
Ashley Miller joining us from Cincinnati. She was out there ahead of anybody else in terms of media to cover this team. Ash, what kind of sense were you getting just being at the team hotel around some of these guys? I know it was 2 days out, but the mental side of things, other than being anxious, where are these guys in terms of, I guess, being ready mentally going into Saturday?
I think the Cornell loss is kind of playing a huge role as to how ready they are to get on the ice, because that's something that they wanted to put behind them. Last weekend, obviously in the ECAC semis, they took an early exit to Cornell 4-1, and it just wasn't a good performance when it comes down to it. The first 2 periods were kind of just really slow for them. They took a little bit to get going, and at that point they were already down 2-0 in the third period, and it was too late. And for these guys, the ECAC tournament championship was something that they wanted, and so now they're fired up knowing, well, we can't have any more of those games. There can be no more letdowns because this is a one-and-done situation. So I think they're ready to get back out on the ice because they want to show people that they belong to be here, and they want to put that Cornell loss behind them and show that maybe that's just somewhat of an aberration again, that we don't play like that, we can play better, and they want to prove that this weekend. But they get past Penn State, and they're going to probably see the number 1 overall seed in Denver.
Yeah, and then when they beat them, you're going to Chicago. Not sure when we'll see you back in the Capital Region, Ash. I'm figuring that the team that plays the best defense is probably going to win this game, because I'm looking at a stat that says Penn State comes into the game tied for second nationally in goals per game, almost 4 goals per game, and Union is 4th with 3.78 goals per game. So you got a couple of offenses that are more than capable of putting the puck in the back of the net. I guess which team is going to be able to slow the other one down might be the winner here on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. And it's kind of interesting that you say that. I didn't know that stat, but it's amazing to think that somehow this Penn State team has sort of flown under the radar in the Big Ten. They have a really similar record to Union, 24-11-2 is Penn State, 25-9-3 is Union. So, their stats, some of their stats statistically aren't that far off. So it's interesting that they really did run that way through the Big Ten tournament and that they're here, and maybe no one was talking about them, whereas people are talking a little more about Union. But you have a guy like Jeff Taylor, who's one of the best defensemen in the country. And again, the guy that I was talking to last night who's going to call the game said, if he shows up, if Sack shows up, and if Vecchione shows up, this game should be Union's, but, that all has to happen, and it didn't happen last Saturday. So it's a one-shot deal. You're one and done, so you never do know, but it would be nice if Union got out to an early lead because when they score first, they're pretty good. But they've played from behind a lot this year.
And then we all know goaltending is huge, right? I always joke with Rick Kowalski when I have him on. I'm going to ask a goaltending question. How's the goaltending? The team that has the best goalie is going to win. But honestly, in playoff hockey, you do need somebody that's locked in. What's your thoughts on Sakelaropoulos in goal for Union? I mean, he's had overall a pretty good season, and I think Rick Bennett expects a big game out of him tomorrow, Ash.
He has, and if you ask Rick after the game against Cornell, Sack was the only reason that Union was in that game until the third period. He stood on his head in the first period, faced a ton more shots than Union could get off against the opposing goalie, and they were only down 1-0 and 2-0. So he was the reason that they were in that game to begin with. So he's your guy between the pipes, and they know that, and they always expect big things from him. And I actually saw an interesting stat in the game notes. He is 1 win shy of passing Troy Grosnick for third in program history. So a win tomorrow would get him there. And Rick Bennett is also 2 wins shy of passing Nate Lehman as the program's all-time winningest coach. So if you can get 1 win, you move Sack up 1, and if you can get 2 wins this weekend, Rick Bennett is the guy when it comes to Union hockey, passing a pretty good coach in Nate Lehman.
That's good stuff because Grosnick was a heck of a goaltender. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, he's ripping it up in the AHL this year. He's probably the best goaltender in the AHL.
So what's your day set up like? What's the press conference stuff like in Cincinnati today? When are the Union guys available?
Yeah, I'm going to go over there pretty shortly and just kind of check out some of the other practices, which go earlier because Union's the later game tomorrow. The two teams, Michigan Tech and Denver, will go a little bit earlier today. So I'm going to go check them out for a little bit. Union is on the ice at 2 until 3, and then they're available press conference style at 3:15. And Penn State follows them on the ice. So I'll kind of bounce back and forth. I'll cover Union practice and get some of the guys afterwards, and then I'll try to shoot a little bit of Penn State practice, and I would be interested to see what they had to say in their press conference as well, just because, you don't know a ton about this team until you see them. So it'll be interesting to see what their coach says about Union and what Rick says about Penn State. Although, these hockey coaches, they tend to say it's all about our team, which they did say last night. So hopefully we'll get a little more out of them than that.
It's going to be a lot of just have to play Union hockey. And going to be a lot of, just trusting the process and, all that stuff. Yeah.
One game at a time. You know how it works.
Yeah. Well, listen, Ash, have a good day out there. We have any downtime where you get a really good meal or maybe even go to the spa or something?
Yeah, I don't know about the spa, but I may take a walk around and see if I can get dinner somewhere cool. It's a cool city. It's just, I don't really know where I'm going. I tried to check it out in the daylight yesterday so I could kind of get my feel for it, but we'll see if I can find anything good. I'll send you some pictures, too.
All right, sounds good, Ash. Look forward to your reports tonight on News Channel 13. Thank you, Ash.
Thanks, guys.